let's build a rate limiter. But first, what is a rate limiter? Rate limiter is a technique used to limit the number of requests a user can make within a given time frame. For example, web applications may limit the number of requests a user can make within a given time frame to avoid DOS attacks. In our example, we are going to build a fixed window rate limiter. Fixed window rate limiter works by having a time window at maximum number of requests a user can make within that time period. For example, saying that a user can only make 5 requests in a period of 10 seconds. First, we are going to define a class, a fixed window rate limiter class. And then we are going to have a init function which will be having 4 variables. Now the first 2 variables will be coming from the user itself. So as we said, you want to limit the number of requests a user can make in a certain period of time. So we have the time window, and then we have the maximum number of requests. And then we'll need to track 2 more variables. The first one is how many requests a user has made already in a, and the second one will be tracking the time when the user started to make the requests. So you'll be having this window time window for users, which will be a dictionary where the key will be the user ID and then the value will be the actual time, the timestamp the user started to make the requests. And then we'll be having the number of requests a user has already made. So this also is it's a dictionary. So again, the key will be the user ID and then the value will be the number of requests a user has made. And then we'll be having a function over here, which would be is allowed function. And this allowed function basically takes the user ID to check if that user has allowed to make the request or not. So you'll be having the current time here. You'll define the current time, or which is the current timestamp actually. And let's import time. Then we will be having the start time for the user, which should be on the self dot time window users and the user ID. Let's use a get user ID. Once we have the current time and the start time, we now want to check if not start time. So this means that this is a first request of the user and they don't have any registered start time or the number of requests. So this is their first request. So if not start time, we want to register the start time. So we will say self dot time window users user ID equals to the current time and then self dot number of requests user ID equals to 1. So this will be the first request and then we want to return true. But this is not the only case where you want to return true and reset the time window users and the number of requests of a particular user. We also want to check if if the current request the user is sending, it's outside the time window. So, for example, if they've already sent the three requests in their first 10 seconds, so this is another 10-second, another time window. We want to do a reset similarly. So, or we would say, or the current time minus the start time is greater than self dot time window. So it has already passed the time window. Now what we want to do, we want to reset their time and the number of requests. Next, we want to check the number of requests they've sent. So if the time is okay, everything is okay, we don't need to do a reset or register the first request. We want to check the number of requests they have sent. So I would say number of requests equals to self dot number of requests of the particular user ID. Let me use a get over here. Number of requests. Now, if the number of requests is greater than or equal to the maximum number of requests they've already sent, then I want to return false. So we don't want to allow their particular request because they've already exceeded the maximum number of requests. Else, they haven't exceeded their maximum number of requests. And what we want to do is we want to increment their number of requests. So we will say self dot number of requests of this particular user, and I set this, I increment it by 1, and then I return true. So this is our basic logic of is allowed method, and this is the only method we need here. Next, we want to simulate a user sending a request, and we want to see how this function would react. So I will create a rate limiter over here, rate limiter, and I will call this class, and I will initialize it by giving a time window of 10 seconds and maximum request of 3 requests. So any particular user can send 3 requests in 10 seconds or do a particular action. So this is the rate limiter we have set, and now the user ID, just to simulate this particular functionality, I will create a user ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I will loop. I create a for loop for I in range, and we are simulating 10 requests. So we'll be sending 10 requests, and let's say if the rate limiter dot is allowed user ID, then I will print request, and then I will print a request number I plus 1 allowed. Else print denied. So I will print denied over here, request, and then I will put the request number I plus 1, and I will say denied. So this loop will basically test out our logic and simulate sending request to the application, and we will say if this rate limiter is allowing or denying the requests. I will also include a sleep function over here to simulate pauses between the requests. So time dot sleep 2. I am opening up a terminal over here, and I run this program. So Python 3.9 and rate limiter, and we'll see how the program will behave. So the first request is allowed, the second one is allowed, the third one is allowed, fourth is denied, the fifth one is denied. Because remember, only 3 requests are allowed in within 10 seconds. So after 5 seconds, sorry, after the fifth request, the sixth one will be allowed, because we basically multiplied this 2. We are sleeping for 2 seconds. So we multiply 2 by 5, which will give us 10. So we've already reached the time window, and now we will do a reset. So the count will reset, and the sixth, seventh, and eighth will be allowed, the 3 requests again. But these 2 requests, 9 and 10, will be within the time window period, and they've already reached the maximum request. So it will be denied. If you enjoyed coding with me, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you.